Hello and thanks for joining us for our mid-morning edition of Arirang News. I'm Mark Broom. Let's start by taking a look at the day's headlines. Slap on the sunscreen. It's officially the hottest day of the year so far here in South Korea. Temperatures are predicted to soar well past 30 degrees Celsius in most areas, including in Seoul. Reversing its earlier decision to cancel the meeting just hours earlier, a North Korean civic group shows up for working-level talks with its South Korean counterpart in China. We have the latest. Plus, it was supposed to be a close race, but Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi proves the pollsters wrong and cruises to a landslide re-election victory. Indians stick with what they know, despite a farming crisis, rising unemployment and new taxes. Now, June is still over 1 week away, but it feels like summer is already here. For those of you in Korea, if you thought yesterday was hot, be aware of some extra sizzling temperatures today. Seoul is expected to come under its first heatwave advisory of the year later today. While this summer isn't expected to be as hot as last year, it's still going to be a sizzler, so have your mini fan, shades and sunscreen at the ready. Our Lee Seung-jae starts us off.
A cooling fog system, which is used to cool down citizens during the peak of summer, has already been activated in parts of South Korea. And Daegu, a city known to be one of the hottest in the nation, is already feeling the summer heat.
I didn't think it was going to be hot since it's May. Now that I'm outside, it's hot. I'm quite worried about June, July, and August.
In Seoul, temperatures have also risen sharply. As the mercury soars past 30 degrees Celsius, the year's first heat wave advisory will be issued on Friday. It marks just the second time that Seoul will be under a heat wave advisory in May since May 2016. Advisories are also being issued in other parts of the nation. Temperatures are higher than the seasonal average due to a high-pressure system from the North Pacific and high thermal pressure from China. However, experts say this summer won't be as sweltering as last year, which was one of the hottest on record.
During spring, Tibet was covered with snow, so the possibility of a strong and constant heat wave like last year is expected to be small.
The monsoon season is expected to arrive later than usual, with most of the summer rain to be concentrated in southern regions. However, after monsoon season, bouts of heavy rains are expected across the country. Just like last year, between 1 to 3 typhoons are expected to affect South Korea, but forecasters also warn there's a possibility of a super typhoon due to the El Nino effect. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now, tensions between Seoul and Tokyo continue to simmer. They did so on Thursday over Tokyo's wartime forced labor of Koreans. Speaking on the sidelines of an OECD ministerial meeting in Paris, South Korea's Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-hwa told her Japanese counterpart Taro Kono that Japan needs to make efforts to heal the victims' wounds, and she highlighted the importance of Japan speaking prudently about the sensitive issue. Japan reacted angrily when South Korea's Supreme Court ordered in 2018 that 2 Japanese companies, Nippon Steel and Sumitomo Metal, now called Nippon Steel Corporation, and Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, compensate Korean victims of forced labor. Officials say the meeting went on half an hour longer than the 60 minutes originally scheduled. According to Seoul's foreign ministry, the 2 diplomats also exchanged views on the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula and the dispute settlement on South Korea's ban on Japanese fishery products from regions around Fukushima. Acting U.S. Secretary of Defense Patrick Shanahan will begin a tour of Asia starting next Tuesday, a trip that will also bring him to Seoul. The Pentagon says Shanahan will attend the Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore, slated for May 31st to June 2nd, where he will meet with key leaders from the region and announced the US Department of Defense's new strategy for the Indo-Asia Pacific region. He will also likely meet with key leaders to reaffirm defense relationships and hold bilateral and multilateral meetings with other senior officials. Details of Shanahan's trip to Seoul have yet to be disclosed. Now, after a last-minute cancellation by North Korea of a planned inter-Korean civic group's joint event in China, the South Korean Committee for the Implementation of the June 15th Joint Declaration say they were able to hold a working-level meeting with the North Koreans. During last night's frank dialogue, the North Koreans reportedly told the South Koreans that they had to cancel because they felt the objectives were being distorted. Oh Jung-hee reports.
3 South Korean civic groups were originally supposed to meet with their North Korean counterparts this week in Chinese city of Shenyang. Those are the South Korean Committee for Implementation of the June 15th Joint Declaration, the Korean Council for Reconciliation and Cooperation, and the Movement for One Korea. Each of them was to meet with their respective North Korean counterpart for 1 or 2 days from Thursday until Sunday. But as they arrived in Shenyang on Thursday, the North unilaterally called off all the meetings. Later in the day, one of the 3 groups, the South Korean Committee for Implementation of the June 15th Declaration, had the chance to talk with its North Korean counterpart. The committee says it had some frank talks with the North Korean Committee and the Overseas Committee. There, the North explained they had to cancel the scheduled meetings because the objectives were being distorted through South Korean media. They said they wanted to discuss ways to resolve the current impasse in inter-Korean relations, but South Korean media were highlighting some other, quote, secondary issues. Meanwhile, the South Korean Implementation Committee says the 3 sides shared concerns about the lull in inter-Korean diplomacy. They agreed they face a, quote, grave situation now where inter-Korean ties could either move forward or make a U-turn to the past. The groups promised to sincerely implement inter-Korean summit declarations, quote, autonomously. The word autonomous is a term North Korea uses to urge the South to stop heeding what the U.S. thinks and cooperating with the North. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
US President Donald Trump has announced a new $16 billion aid package for American farmers hurt by the US-China trade war. The US Department of Agriculture said on Thursday about $14.5 billion of the total would be paid directly to producers. Farmers have been among the hardest hit from the trade snag between the 2 countries, and they are also a key constituency that helped Trump win in 2016. Last year, the Trump administration provided $12 billion in aid to farmers to help those affected by the trade war. The International Monetary Fund says companies in the US are paying almost all the costs from the Trump administration's tariffs on Chinese imports, calling US and Chinese consumers the main losers in this trade battle. In a blog post on Thursday, the IMF's chief economist, Gitta Gopinath, said tariff revenue collected has been borne almost entirely by US importers. She explained that some of the tariffs have been passed on to US consumers, like those on washing machines, while others have been absorbed by importing firms through lower profit margins. She also warned an all-out trade war will cut global GDP by 1/3 of a percentage point. Seoul's finance chief has stressed the need for expansionary fiscal policies, despite the country's growing debt. Finance Minister Hong Nam-gi said on Thursday that the country's debt-to-GDP ratio will surpass 40% next year, given a decline in tax revenue as well as expansionary policies. The ratio, typically seen as a measure of fiscal soundness, is expected to hit 40.2% in 2020, topping 40% for the first time. But the minister said expansionary policies are needed to revitalize the economy and support structural reform. He also said the government will take measures to prevent instability caused by the trade spat between the US and China and volatility in the foreign exchange market. Now, this year marks the 5th anniversary of the opening of one of Seoul's landmark buildings, the Dongdaemun Design Plaza. And to mark the occasion, the building opened up some of its hidden spaces to the public. Our Lee Min-sun went there to tour one of these hidden places and files this report.
The giant grey architectural work located in the Dongdaemun district of Seoul is one of the most well-recognized landmarks of the city. Dongdaemun Design Plaza, more commonly known as DDP, is the world's largest three-dimensional amorphous architecture designed by late architect Zaha Hadid. It's built with some 45,000 aluminum panels and has no straight lines or walls. Since its opening in 2014, DDP has been serving as a cultural hub, hosting 186 exhibitions and 478 events year-round. Asia's biggest fashion event, Seoul Fashion Week, is also held here twice a year, bringing in fashion lovers, designers, and buyers from all around the world.
DDP has become an international landmark. It is one of the most visited spots in Seoul by foreigners. We have had more visitors than we initially expected and have seen DDP contribute to the vitalization of surrounding shops.
To mark its 5th anniversary, DDP is offering special tours to 88 citizens inside the iconic building. Visitors will get a chance to see some hidden places that have never been opened for the public, including the control room, warehouse, and machine room. Passing through the back doors, visitors can peek at the behind-the-scenes operations that keep this giant piece of architecture running smoothly. People can get a better understanding of DDP's unique design by looking at the inside structure of the roof. At a space right below the roof, visitors can see the space frame that sustains the building without pillars. The highlight of the special tour is going up to the rooftop. The initial design of the building was supposed to allow the public access to the rooftop, but that changed when the ceiling got higher during the construction process. While wearing safety gear, visitors can get a rare panorama view of the Dongdaemun area. Although only 4 special tours are planned for the 5th anniversary, if there's more demand, it could become a regular program. Various exhibitions and events are also lined up to mark the occasion. Now being recognized as global design hub, Dongdaemun Design Plaza hopes to expand its role in the local community and help local design businesses in the coming years. Lee Min-sun, Arirang News.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has scored a dramatic election victory, winning an absolute majority for his party in the lower house of Parliament. For more on this and other news from around the world, let's turn to our Hong Yu. So, Yu, tell us more about Mr. Modi's impressive victory.
Like you said, Mark, Prime Minister Modi secured a landslide victory on Thursday. Election Commission data shows Modi's party, the Bharatiya Janata Party, is projected to get about 300 of the 543 seats in parliament once all the votes are counted. The principal opposition Congress Party won 43 seats and is leading in 9 constituencies.
If anyone has won, it's India. If anyone has won, it's a democracy. If anyone has won, it's the people of India. So all of us, Bharatiya Janata Party workers and our partners in the National Democratic Alliance, dedicate this win to the public.
Thousands of supporters cheered for his victory after waiting hours in a thunderstorm at party headquarters on Thursday evening. The 68-year-old prime minister will serve another 5-year term, continuing his business-friendly policies and tough stand on national security with the party's first back-to-back majority since 1984. On the campaign trail, Modi presented himself as a self-made man with the confidence to cut red tape in the world's 5th largest economy. But now Modi will face demands to stop the continuing youth job crisis and to boost depressed farm incomes. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has addressed the mounting tensions between the U.S. and Iran, saying the threat is real and credible. In an interview with Fox and Friends on Thursday, Pompeo said President Trump will ensure they have all the resources necessary to respond in the event that Iran decides to attack Americans or American interests. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani said on Thursday that Iran will not surrender to U.S. pressure and will not abandon its goals even if it's bombed. This comes as Washington sent more military forces to the Middle East in a show of force against what U.S. officials claim is the Iranian threat to its troops and interests in the region. A series of powerful tornadoes whipped across America's Midwest this week, killing at least 3 people in Missouri and destroying buildings and homes. At least 20 people were treated for injuries in Jefferson City, and emergency officials went from door to door searching for survivors. The Missouri Department of Public Safety says power lines are down, and it advised people to stay away from the damaged areas. In the town of Webbers Falls, Oklahoma, a mandatory evacuation order was issued as a result of flooding from the Arkansas River, described as life-threatening situation by officials. 2 wayward barges slammed into the lock and Dam 16 due to the flood, but local officers said the lock was not damaged.
Time now for our Life and Info segment, where we focus on information that's hopefully useful for your everyday life. Today, we're going to talk about how South Korean businesses are reacting to the early summer-like weather we've been seeing by introducing new products, and how consumers can hopefully, or do what they can anyway, to beat the heat. I'm glad to say our Go-Ryun-hee is in the studio with us. Rooney, thanks for joining us. So start off by telling us about the temperatures we've been seeing for the past week or so. Yesterday was hot enough for most people, but today is going to be even more unbearable.
So the highest temperature in Seoul hit almost 30 degrees Celsius on Thursday, and it looks like the temperature will be higher this month compared to same period last year. Let's take a look at a graph. So as you can see, temperatures during the last 7 days were generally higher this year compared to 2018. And because of this, the nation's distribution industry has already experienced a sales bump in summer-related items. And I took a chance to look at an example of E-Mart, one of the largest retailers in Korea. During the first 16 days of May, its sales of air conditioners jumped by more than 60%. And it was same for other items like watermelons and ice cream. I visited one of the stores, and lots of people were buying such items to prepare for the summer. The retailer has prepared various promotions to quickly respond to people buying summer items earlier than last year. I talked to a customer and a manager about the matter.
It's getting hot, so I came here to buy a watermelon for my family. It's good to see some promotions going on.
A lot of customers are buying air conditioners these days. I think it's because they're purchasing the products in advance before it gets too hot like last summer.
So Rooney, what we're seeing then is major retailers are experiencing this sales bump on certain products like air conditioners and watermelons. But tell us more about some unique products we can also buy, apart from those things, that we can use to cool ourselves down a touch.
Sure. So the first category I want to mention is clothing. Korea's summer weather, as you know, is very hot, but also very humid, which can cause us to sweat a lot. Some clothing companies have introduced new products that have special functions in terms of keeping you looking and feeling fresh. One brand that makes sports garments came up with a special fabric that provides a cool feeling when the fabric comes into contact with moisture such as sweat. Their new products include stylish polo shirts and mesh jeans. A manager at this company shared their marketing plans for the future.
We're planning to hold events so we can meet potential customers face to face. Also, we plan to work with YouTube creators involved in outdoor activities so they can share their positive experiences after wearing our clothes.
Well, Rooney, I have to say I've never heard of mesh jeans before this morning, but I hear they're jeans with very small holes in them so the air can circulate a bit more while you wear them, so you feel cooler as well.
Exactly.
And it's interesting that that company has decided to call their summerwear the Ice series. So it gives you a sense of what they're trying to convey to consumers. It's also interesting to note that they want to work with some big name YouTubers to promote their products as well. It really shows you how marketing and the forms of media that big companies use now, the way things are changing in that regard. Are there any other items out there that you'd like to tell us about?
Sure. And you cannot discuss summer in Korea without talking about food.
Yeah.
So I want to introduce you to some spicy cool noodles released this summer. And major ramen companies have introduced new bibimbap products featuring seaweed. And some might ask why seaweed? And well, it isn't just because it adds chewiness to the noodles, but it's because many consumers want to add some kind of healthy elements to their snack. But as you can see, there are many choices, and I met with one YouTube creator who can help you find what that suits your taste. And Bae Myung-guk's YouTube channel is about reviewing food. And when new products hit the shelves, he tries to be the first one to try them out. Subscribers to his channel find out the specifics about the cool noodles, such as the price, where you can buy them, and his personal review. And because you have so many options to choose from, it can be helpful to find YouTubers like him and see what products suit you best before you spend your hard-earned money.
I try to explain the taste of the sauce or the quality of the noodles in detail. Because I also touch on the spiciness of the products, viewers can choose the products accordingly.
Okay, sounds good. You actually have a couple of packets of those noodles on the desk there. Perhaps you can show the camera if we can get a look at that. Are they actually served cold then? So normally with noodles you have to pour boiling water in them. So you have to do that first to get the noodles nice and soft, and then what, you have to wait for it to go cold or something?
You have to put it in the cool noodles, sometimes with ice, and you have to wash it for like a minute. So it make it cold, and then you have your bibimbap ready.
Okay, wonderful. Well, it's good to see, and perhaps check out YouTube if you want some reviews on what Korean people think about them. So you've talked about how the distribution industry here in Korea has really seen this sales growth of summer-related products already. We're still in May, it's not even June yet, and how customers, consumers are getting more and more options as the years roll on, both in terms of air conditioners, food, drinks, ice cream and whatnot. But what does the heat and the hot weather, this early heat wave we're having, what kind of effect does that have on the economy as a whole?
Well, Mark, I talked to an expert in the field, and it turns out there are both good and bad sides. Let's take a listen.
According to a report, consumption increases by 0.5% if the temperature increases by 1 degree Celsius. Nevertheless, overall labor productivity decreases if the scorching heat continues for a long time.
Well, that makes sense, what that expert was saying there. We all know what it feels like if we're stuck in a stuffy office. It's hard to motivate yourself to work as hard as you would do if you felt nice and cool. So positives and negatives on both sides of the argument there. And let's hope, Rooney, that it isn't as hot as it was last summer, because we were seeing temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius last summer. But the report we heard at the top of the newscast suggests that it is going to be another hot one. But thank you, as always, for joining us. Perhaps you can give me one of those noodles after the newscast. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. The heat wave continues to intensify. Most parts of Korea will be baking under midsummer-like temperatures, with the season's first heat wave advisories being issued in many parts, including here in the capital. In fact, Gyeongsang-Bukdo provinces will see highs above 35 degrees Celsius this afternoon. The intense heat will get you sunburnt in a matter of minutes. UV rays will be very high. Ozone levels will also be very high in most areas during the day. And what's worse, western regions will have high levels of fine dust. So it will get seriously uncomfortable by the afternoon. Senior citizens and young children will need to take special care with the highs easily surpassing 30 degrees Celsius. It's not going to be as hot as today for the weekend, but unseasonably warm temperatures will stick with us through the weekend. And the mini heat wave is set to end with some welcome showers rolling in next Monday. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all the news and weather we have for this Friday morning here in Seoul. Stay tuned to Arirang TV. Plenty more coming up, including our next newscast at noon Korea time with our very own Lee Ji-yoon. But if we don't see you, have a wonderful weekend. Until next time, goodbye.
Following the inter-Korean summits and the North Korea-US summits, a journey toward peace on the Korean peninsula has become inevitable. 2019 will see countless twists and turns in negotiations as all parties involved work to build peace and search for a winning solution. Peace and Prosperity will explore paths to find these resolutions with a special emphasis on the expected role of Seoul. Peace and Prosperity. Arirang TV's signature talk show, Heart to Heart. We bring in world leaders, business people, experts, celebrities, artists, and Koreans who have made an impact in Korea's status in the world. Hear their professional and personal life stories, as well as their social and political views, achievements, secrets to success, and future plans. Don't miss your chance to catch the engaging interview, Heart to Heart. Stunning visuals, stylish editing, Arts Avenue. From age-old traditions to modern styles, explore in detail Korea's culture and arts by introducing the latest showcases around town and offering insight to the trends and traits of Korean creativity. Discover the beauty and depth of Korean culture and arts on Arts Avenue. In 1996, the annals of the Joseon dynasty were listed in the UNESCO Memory of the World Register. This great heritage is the world's only historical record that covers the longest continual period of a single dynasty. Each page of the annals shows the efforts made to record history from a truthful and impartial perspective, as well as the devotion to preserve history that enable these records to survive many threats and wars. Let's go see the annals of the Joseon dynasty, a global cultural heritage. Through his historical cartoon, Park Si-baek helped others to approach the annals of the Joseon dynasty more easily. He's now our guide in this tour of global heritage.
우리의 이 위대한 기록문화유산인 조선왕조실록은 지금은 누구나 컴퓨터 앞에서 손쉽게 접할 수 있습니다. 이렇듯 조선왕조실록을 이제 우리가 인터넷을 통해서 쉽게 접할 수 있게 된 것은 그동안에 25년에 걸친 국역 작업이 있었기 때문인데요. 연 인원만 3,000명의 학자가 동원된 그야말로 대단한 번역 작업이었다고 할 수 있겠습니다. 이것을 실제 제작하는 과정, 이것에는 또 얼마나 많은 사람과 시간과 공력이 들어갔을지 참으로 대단하다는 생각이 듭니다.
On May 8th, in the 27th year of King Injure's reign, the 16th King Injure of the Joseon dynasty had passed away. The publication of the annals of King Injure now began. The orders to submit the draft on King Injure's life went out to all historiographers. The Bureau of State Records, a government office that supported the government administration and located within the palace, became quite busy. The Provisional Office of Annals was formed in the Bureau of State Records. The director of the Annals compilation in charge of the publication of the annals, such as content organization and editing, was a chief supervisor. One of the 3 high state councillors the king appointed was assigned to this task. The organization was composed of a high-level official who was a supervisor and working-level administrators. They were assigned to the office in each small group. The best writers and scholars of the time were put to work in the office, and depending on the duration of the king's reign, the number of small groups could be formed up to 6. The Office of Annals was often of a considerable size, and in case of the Annals of King Sukjong, 256 officials were assigned to the task. The most important materials when publishing the annals were the chronicler's drafts that historiographers wrote. The diary of the Royal Secretariat and Court Chronicle were also included in the annals, that the main body was the chronicler's drafts. The publication of the annals proceeded in 3 stages. Each small group organized the materials chronologically, then completed the initial draft. The initial draft was handed over to the office, where the most talented writers and scholars of the time edited and made supplements to the draft, which was a second stage. The second draft was submitted to the director of the annals compilation, who made final corrections, and the orthodox draft ready for print was completed. The final stage involved printing using metal movable type. 4 copies were printed and stored at the Bureau of State Records in each history archive in the provinces. This ended the publication of the annals. The annals of King Injure took 3 years and 8 months to complete.
However, they still had the most important final task left. Saegeomjeong Pavilion, the remaining pavilion in the northern Chunglo area. Beneath the pavilion is a large flat rock called Chaidam Rock. When the Annals compilation was finished, all compliers gathered at Chaidam Rock to wash the manuscripts used in the compilation. They did this to reuse the paper that was variable and also to prevent the disclosure of all the drafts. All drafts, including the chronicler's draft, were washed in this ceremony. The illustration of the washing of manuscripts from the time of Yeonsangun. The illustration depicts a scene of people washing manuscripts. There is a feast prepared next to the people who are washing scrolls of paper. This is a scene of the feast that the king hosted to reward the officials for their hard work after the washing ceremony is finished. It was a happy occasion that signaled the end of the Annals publication work. From the beginning to the end, every stage of the publication of the Annals of the Joseon dynasty was done with strong historical consciousness. However, there were some annals that had the word revised added to the title. The Annals on certain kings were published twice, with the second version called the Revised Annals. What could be the reason? In case of the Annals of King Seonjo that were published in Hwang Hae-gun's time, the annals were complied by the Northerners, who were the ruling faction at the time. As such, the annals contained much material that was unfavorable to other factions, such as the Westerners and Southerners. When the Westerners became the ruling faction after the injure restoration, they recomplied and published King Seonjo's annals, called it the Revised Annals of King Seonjo. Some were simple corrections, as you can see, and some were different records on an incident. They edited and made corrections on entries they believed to be wrongly written by the opposing faction. However, even when they published revised annals, they left the original annals as they were, and instead researched the parts that needed correction and newly published the annals. They preserved both versions of the annals and hoped that their descendants would assess history from a balanced perspective. This shows just how strong the historical consciousness was in the Joseon dynasty. The Annals of the Joseon dynasty is the fruit of such spirit.
조선이라는 나라는 알다시피 다 이제 그야말로 전국적인 전쟁도 치렀고 숱하게 화재 사건도 겪었던 나라인데 실록이라고 하는 기록 자체가 종이로 된 것이기 때문에 굉장히 사실상 보존이 어렵고 위험한 측면이 있었죠. 그럼에도 불구하고 우리 선조들이 참으로 놀라운 기록에 대한 보존 정신으로 오늘날까지 잘 남겨주어서 다행히도 오늘날 우리가 쉽게 접할 수 있게 되지 않았나 싶습니다.
The Joseon dynasty built history archives deep within the rugged mountain. History archive is a hall where the annals of the Joseon dynasty and the genealogy were kept. The roof of the history archive building is slumped and has double eaves to allow raindrops to flow easily. The building also had stores